that Nancy Pelosi's longtime chief of staff is a key executive at that company. Richard Blum, Senator Feinstein's husband, significant shareholder of the company. What can you tell us about the interest on the other side of this Dominion software?
Well, obviously they have invested in it for their own reasons and are using it to commit this fraud to steal votes. I think they've even stolen them from other Democrats in their own party who should be outraged about this also. Bernie Sanders might very well have been the Democratic candidate, but they've stolen against whoever they wanted to steal it from.
Sidney, these are incredible charges that you are making this morning. We, of course, will be following this, and we thank you for joining me today. Please come back soon. Sidney Powell.
In this election, the rest have really been in a holding pattern, and Mitch McConnell really threw things today into a new stage in this election, in this transition period, by saying that he backs Donald Trump, not conceding that he is allowed to go through these legal processes and should do so, because he says that there are still questions to be answered.
We have the tools and institutions we need to address any concerns. The president has every right to look into allegations and to request recounts under the law. Let's not have any lectures, no lectures about how the president should immediately, cheerfully accept preliminary election results from the same characters who just spent 4 years refusing to accept the validity of the last election, and who insinuated that this one would be illegitimate too, if they lost again.
And we've got some runoffs too, haven't we, Annalise?
With us now to talk more about the latest on these legal cases. Jenna, great to see you.
Great to see you too, John.
All right, so what does this investigation, and now that William Barr has finally surfaced and he's getting involved, what does this mean now moving forward?
Well, I think that this legitimizes the fact that the allegations are substantial and they're serious. And listen, every American should want to make sure that election fraud, especially when it's outcome determinative, is investigated and handled appropriately. I mean, and so for William Barr and the Department of Justice to get involved, election fraud at this level poses a national security threat. And this is something where the DOJ's actions, they will follow the facts where they lead, and that's the obligation and responsibility of the Justice Department, like every other prosecutor. I've been a prosecutor before, and this is not about a specific interest in an outcome. It's about making sure that you follow the facts and the evidence where it leads. And shouldn't every American want that? For the Democrats and the mainstream media and these liberal pundits who are somehow saying that this is partisan politicking, that is absolutely ridiculous and absurd. Every American should want to have confidence in the legitimacy of our elections, and they're the same people that floated this Russia collusion narrative for 3 years without one shred of evidence. There is more evidence in all of the cases in the 6 states that we're looking at for fraud and for irregularities than they ever had in the 3.5 years they pushed the Russia collusion hoax and then also the impeachment hoax.
You know, given the kind of gravity of the allegations here, Jenna, you'd think that the top law enforcement official in the country would at least make a statement that he's aware of what's going on and he's on the case before we saw him surface yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, well, and I think that like a normal, regular prosecutor does, he's taking his time. I mean, we are only 1 week out from the election. So this is actually happening pretty rapidly in terms of the lifespan of typical litigation. And of course, we need to do this on an urgent and expeditious basis. But the American people need to understand that this also takes time to make sure that all of the evidence is verified, it's accurate, and that everyone knows what's going on. And of course, that the court has time to intervene and look at this. And so that's why, Justice Alito last week making sure to issue that order that the ballots in Pennsylvania that are late need to be segregated. That was an appropriate move to say, what, we need to preserve the chain of custody. We need to preserve the evidence, and then we will see where this leads to.
All right, we'll talk.
This remains the position of the campaign. This election is not over. A week after Election Day, Joe Biden has been certified as the winner in exactly 0 states.
It's an embarrassment. It will not help the president's legacy.
A war of words as President-elect Joe Biden reportedly weighs legal action as President Trump refuses to concede until his own court battle is fought. What is each campaign's legal path forward? Joining us now, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
All right, let's dive right in. Can Joe Biden successfully sue to force the Trump administration to begin this transition of power?
Well, he can try. The precedent isn't good. He can always get an anti-Trump judge to do anything these days. But in 2000, during the dispute between Bush and Gore, the Clinton administration didn't allow the transition for President Bush, who did win early on, according to the counts, to proceed until mid-December after the Supreme Court ruled. So I don't think he can force his way into power effectively by having a Trump administration official bless his disputed election at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Disputed indeed, because the Trump campaign has active lawsuits in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. That lawsuit in Georgia was dismissed. In your opinion, does the president have a path forward? Do you think that anything could be gained from this in the end?
Well, I mean, if he keeps the presidency, that would be a big gain for him.
Is that possible right now?
There's substantial concerns about fraud in Pennsylvania. I think that's a serious lawsuit. The other opportunities are to have the state legislatures step in, and that you need a political fight there to confirm one way or another whether these post-election counting was proper. In Pennsylvania, it's a Republican-controlled legislature. Same in Georgia. Same in Arizona. They have independent authority to appoint electors, and then ultimately Congress gets to decide which electors to accept or not. So if the president so chose, he could really push this far.
Yeah, the election not over until mid-December.
My fellow Americans, I stand here with all that feel as I do, disgusted with this lie that Biden has been chosen, as if we all don't know the truth. And when one tries to deceive, we know that one can't get away with it. There will be a price to pay. The ones who are jumping for joy now are jumping toward the horror they will be in for, because I know that the promises being made from the left to the American people will never come to be. My friends of all colors, races, and religions, this is now our greatest fight since the Civil War. The battle of righteousness versus Satan. Yes, Satan. Because these leftists are evil, corrupt, and they want to tear down this nation. We must not allow this. We must fight this corruption that has taken over and fight for the good that seems lost. Let us give our trust to God and fight now for Trump's victory, because we all know this ballot count is corruption like they are. So let us not back down. Let us fight this fight as if it is our last fight on earth. As Muhammad Ali said, it's not over till the last punch you have. God bless.
looking up to the sky. A friend of mine said, you know, you're the most famous man in the world. I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, he said, no, who's more famous than you? You are the most famous man in the world. What are you talking about? Who's more famous? I said, Jesus Christ. And I don't want to take any chances. So I looked up and I said, and it's not even close.
Times that if elected, he would most likely try to issue a national mask mandate. This morning, the alleged presidential winner declared that he's already working on setting up a virus task force, and that even though there is now a vaccine that appears it may clearly work, he will still reach out to all governors and ask them to implement a nationwide mask policy. And if Republican governors don't obey, he'll reach out to mayors in most of the cities and ask that they comply with his directive. Again, we'll see what happens with the election before we even talk about new policy taking effect. How about that? Already acting like the president, right? Vote count not in. You know, it still just amazes me that the media and that the Biden campaign actually believe they can come out just days after a contested election like this and say, I'm the president. He's the president. I call this election the debacle of the century. How about you folks? That's what I think too. Let's check in with my next guest. He is the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch and become a staple here on the show, filling us in on all kinds of stuff that we need to keep an eye on. Chris Farrell from Judicial Watch. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
Great to be with you, thanks.
Well, where do we begin? Let's begin with the investigations. How about that? We have got multiple reports of everything from dead people and dogs voting, people voting multiple times, people that weren't in states long enough to vote but somehow got registered, to extra ballots just poof appearing, stuff that wasn't signed, filled out incorrectly, getting counted. I mean, how much more evidence do we need, Chris, and what are you guys at Judicial Watch doing to prove to Democrats on the left, voters, politicians, and the left-wing media that voter fraud is happening, did happen?
We have active investigations in all of the contested states. So whether it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, every one of them, we've got active investigations underway. We're going to get records and documents. We always do. We're very good at it. We also have a 20-year track record of going into elections and uncovering the truth. We're the ones back in the year 2000 who went into Florida and gained access to all of the Florida ballots using the Florida Sunshine Act, the open records law. The rest of the world then came in behind us, but the folks that actually got access to the ballots the very first time, the hanging chads and the dimpled ballots, that was Judicial Watch, and then the rest of the world came in behind us. So we have a long track record. We just released a report earlier this month that shows that there's 1.8 million people on the voting rolls that shouldn't be there to begin with. All that documentation is on our website. You can read it. We've also been successful in removing people from voting rolls who shouldn't be there. And that's to the tune of 1.5 million in Los Angeles County alone. We've had big court successes in Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana as well. And so we've got a long set of credentials when it comes to elections.
Chris, tell us if you can, because I know once it's pending litigation, and if you're a lawyer, you're not supposed to discuss things, but what, if any, can you tell us where we've got the concrete evidence? We've heard from Trump's team come out and say, we've got it, they've made the claims. I just like hearing it from other people's mouths so viewers hear it, that we know for sure there's concrete evidence out there. Can you describe some of the voter fraud that we know of going on in Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, the Silver State? I mean, that whistleblower from the weekend just told Fox News, hey, I worked for one of them here in Nevada, and I heard the supervisor tell us to do this. I witnessed it. He actually filled out an affidavit. How can the left and the media ignore that when somebody's actually putting their name to it and saying, I saw voter fraud?
Yeah, the critical thing for everyone to do, and I don't care if it's one of your viewers, producers on your staff, other media, You've got to go to the source document and look at it yourself. So in instances where, like Rudy Giuliani or other of the president's attorneys have gone into court and filed lawsuits, the lawsuits themselves and the attachments, the exhibits that are actual sworn declarations, that's what people need to go and look at. Not the secondhand scuttlebutt, not the I heard a story and my friend's brother, sister. I don't care about that. I want sworn declarations. I want to see records. And what's been filed in court is what you can hang your hat on.
That's what I'm looking forward to seeing more of and hearing more about, is what's actually in these documents where they've got the proof. The biggest problem is, though, Chris, how much damage is already being done by Biden and Harris stepping out there on the stage with their fireworks and their family. I couldn't believe Hunter showed up, by the way, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But getting up there, celebrating, the media being complicit, pretty much saying, declaring, which is not the media's job, he's the winner. How do you backtrack from that now if we go 30, 40 days like we did in 2000 and this gets overturned and we have a President Trump for 4 more years? The damage that is done, how are we going to get that information out there if the media continues to deny it even exists?
Well, the problem with it is that it's information warfare. Okay, this is a psychological conditioning operation to program the American public to accept something as being a fact that is not a fact. It's alleged, it's announced, it's promoted, but it's not. The media does not get to call elections in this country. There's a process. There's the Electoral College. They meet in early December. They cast votes. Congress then ratifies what the Electoral College votes on. That's the process, not the Associated Press or some other outlet making an announcement based on their projections. And the problem is, the more the American public keeps hearing President-elect over and over again, it's brainwashing. This is psychological conditioning. The American public is being manipulated, and the facts don't support it.
Yeah, and unlike 20 years ago in 2000, we now have more cable outlets. We have social media, which is blocking conservative voices. I mean, my God, they've blocked the president from tweeting about what's going on with the investigation. So you have social media teaming up with the mainstream networks and cable outlets, and then all the Democrats and the candidate Biden and Harris jumping on the bandwagon, and all of them telling the American people, this is the way it is. He's won, when in fact, that's not the fact. But
Correct.
Facts don't matter, right? Anymore, I guess.
Unfortunately, when you have social media and the news media acting as the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, that is the one-sided story you get. You are exactly correct.
Yeah, it reminds me of that meme that keeps just filtering all over the place. And we've heard some leaders say it over the last couple of weeks too. You're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. And the facts of the case are, folks, if you're watching this program with Chris and I right now, share it with everyone. Joe Biden is not your president. He may become the president.